Hi everyone, my name is Victoria. Today I'll be talking to you all about how I make art out of plastic marine debris. A little bit about me. I'm a science communicator at Florida Atlantic University's Harbor Branch Oceanographic Institute. An artist, as I mentioned earlier. I focus on installation art and jewelry. I'm an advocate for zero waste lifestyle and systems. Upcycling, as I use in my title, refers to the process of transforming waste materials into new materials of greater quality and value, versus recycling means converting waste materials into new materials and objects, usually of the same quality or less. So the term zero waste, it's a guiding principle used by people in organization committed to reducing their waste stream as close to 100% as possible. So it doesn't mean that they're perfectly zero waste, it just means that they're very committed to achieving that goal. And the goal is for no trash to be sent to landfills, incinerators, or the ocean. Ironically, I'm talking to you guys about zero waste and plastic-free lifestyles, but even just a decade ago, there was much less plastic in our daily routine, and you guys were already leading a more plastic-free lifestyle. Two very common categories of things that I find are consumer-related single-use plastics, like utensils, straws, bottles, lots of bottle caps, those types of things, as well as fishing gear related materials. All of the pictures here are taken in South Florida, and these are scenes and objects that I'm sure you guys have witnessed a ton before. Once I collect these items, I clean them, photograph them, document them, turn them into jewelry. Here's another example of that design. And so a lot of these objects are large plastic fragments, which eventually would turn into smaller plastic fragments and eventually into microplastics, which means lesser than 5 millimeters, so quite small. Much of the pollution that I do collect is unusable, unfortunately, due to UV degradation. So depending on the strength of the plastic to start off with, as well as the duration that it's been exposed to the environment and mainly the UV rays of the sun, they'll be more degraded. So degraded that it would like break in your hand and you can't use it for anything. So here's an example of just how small plastic particles can get once exposed to the sun for a long time. At this point, it's pretty much like plastic sand, and you can't remove that from the environment. And unfortunately, when it's that small, it can really permeate like every aspect of the food chain. There's even been reports of coral polyps ingesting tiny plastic particles. That's why it's so important to intercept plastic before it gets to this stage. Okay, so as I mentioned, the other common finds are fishing related pollution. So I find a lot of ghost fishing gear, which means that it's either intentionally or unintentionally abandoned fishing gear. Like you can see in this bottom photo, that's a net that's stuck on a coral tree, and it entangled a bunch of critically endangered corals that the Coral Restoration Foundation was growing. So one of my most recent collaborations is with the Marathon Turtle Hospital. This photo kind of makes my heart sink, but every single Ziploc bag here they sent to me, each bag is for a different turtle patient. A lot of these turtles were rehabilitated and released, but some weren't as lucky. Like in this top left corner, you can see that Reef passed away and that there was still more monofilament stuck inside of him. You're probably all very familiar with the reduce, reuse, recycle motto. However, in more recent years, zero wasters have come up with the refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, and rot. So they added those, that first and the last one. Refuse has to do with the behavior of asking for no straw, please, asking for no plastic bag. And rot has to do with composting your food waste. You can also be an eco art volunteer. You can email me and I'll add you to my list. You can dispose of fishing monofilament correctly. There's usually like drop-off stations where you can put that monofilament in to avoid like birds and animals from getting tangled in it. You can stay up to date with Surfrider Foundation Miami, which is a great organization. They have awesome resources. Like, for example, they have an ocean-friendly restaurants database, which allows you to see like restaurants near you that are ocean-minded. And lastly, you can do, well, not lastly, there's a lot that we can do, but I'm a huge advocate for waste audits in your home. Just take a day to see what you throw in your garbage bin and take a look if there's anything that you could easily be avoiding. Those are always really interesting. When I did mine, I was shocked to see how much of my garbage bin was just food waste, like produce peels and stuff like that. So then we started composting. And so now we really don't have as much buildup in our garbage. Okay, this is probably one of the most important ones, which is showing up for policy change. So when advocacy groups like Surfrider or others are like, all right, this bill is about to, go through a hearing this week, call your senator and let them know that you're in favor of it or against it or whatever. It's important to call at that time because it makes a difference. And then you can also go to hearings that interest you yourself. So, and those hearings can be so boring, so have fun with it. Try to inspire the city commissioners. In this one in Key West, I wore one of my plastic pollution outfits that I made, and people loved it. So just have fun with it. And it's just really important to express yourself and use your voice whenever it's the time to do so. Lastly, you can participate in coastal cleanups, obviously. Since you folks are mainly in the Miami area, Debris Free Ocean is really active around you guys and have so many awesome events going on. All right, so now that we've touched on individual action, which is so important because individual action creates collective awareness. It's the basis for creating change and understanding of certain issues. However, it's important to lift each other up, not blame each other, because it is crucial to keep the corporate producers accountable, because they're the ones creating all of these products in the first place that we then have to deal with. As you can see on the right-hand side, the top 10 largest plastic producing companies are all of these oil, chemical companies. In case I haven't made that connection earlier on, plastic is a petroleum product, which means there's a really tight correlation between oil industry and the plastic industry. It's also one of the reasons why it's been so hard for the anti-plastic movement to make any strides forward, because huge oil corporations keep lobbying against it. By 2050, the plastic industry may account for 20% of the world's total oil consumption. So that's really how plastic pollution, plastic production ties into climate change. It's a fossil fuel driven industry. And I'll leave you all with this quote, which I love. And thank you so much for listening to me. And again, if you have any questions or thoughts or interested in being on my volunteer list, shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much.